The women's club Thanksgiving breakfast played the piano there too. But anyway, she lived her life very well right up until the end with enthusiasm and conviction, and we'll miss her always, and if we can have a moment of silence in her memory. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Councilmember Capocha. I understand that she had her last swim at the age of 93 over at the Act. That's amazing. Pretty impressive. Okay, the next item on our agenda is for the approval for the agenda.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have two sets, November 14 and November 28. We can take them together, and or if we need to have any edits or any comments, we can take them separately if necessary.
Good to me, both of them.
Yeah, same. I'll move for approval, both.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that also, that motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to reports. Would anyone like to start?
I'll start.
Happy New Year, everybody. I just wanted to give kudos once again to our Sierra Madre Rose Float Association for yet another showstopper float this year. It was great to watch them on TV, and it's great to see all those volunteers out there once again. Just an amazing thing happens every year like magic. And the only other thing I had to report is I went to the Community Services Commission meeting in December and got to watch them conduct their business. No real news to report.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Goss.
I'll go really quickly. The LACE board continues to meet, and over the break, LACE is the Los Angeles Community Choice Energy coalition that was recently formed, where it's going to be a alternative energy provider to Edison. And over the break, the California Public Utilities Commission actually put on their agenda a measure to stall any community choice coalitions like LACE from starting for at least up to a year. And the mayor submitted a letter with my signature as well, expressing our disapproval of that. And we sent that to not only the CPUC, the commissioners, but our elected officials as well, State Senator Anthony Portantino and Assemblymember Holden. And we'll see what happens. I think the hearing is not until February where they'll consider the item, but there's been a lot of pushback from electeds and community members who obviously want things like LACE to be established to give ratepayers more of a choice and to make energy actually more green. So we'll see what happens, and I'll try to keep you guys apprised, but right now it's just a wait and see.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Del Mar, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Just a quick recognition to our police department. I understand it's National Law Enforcement Day. So thank you for your service every day and today. And I know we'll do something a little bit more official in hopefully February, possibly March for Sierra Madre Float Association, but it's just, I didn't get to work out on this year, but know folks that have, and I know something like that when we're looking at 12 awards / trophies over the last 14 years, 12 out of the 14?
12 of 13.
12 of 13. That doesn't just happen by magic. We know that there's a lot of hard work and fundraising all year round. So looking forward to recognizing them next month or the following month. Next item on the agenda is public comment. So if anyone would like to comment on any item that is not on the agenda, please step forward and state your name.
Hi, I'm Pat Alcorn, and I live on Grandview. And I just wanted to thank the city and the Chamber of Commerce for the wonderful honors dinner that happened on December 9th. And I wanted to make a special recognition to Marianne McGilvray, who gave such a clever and wonderful introduction to us. So thank you, Marianne, if you're watching.
I will have to say, people have asked about that rhyme poem, so hopefully we can get copies of that somewhere. Would anyone else like to comment on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. And I believe we have our update for the City of Pasadena Education Foundation and Pasadena Unified School District. And former council member Bart Doyle, if you'd like to come forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. It's nice to come back and visit and not have to vote on anything. I want to briefly review some of the things that are happening at the Pasadena Unified School District, and there's a reason to go through this right now because there's some time-sensitive things that I think you and the community would be interested in knowing. We call this 15 things you might want to know about the school district, but there's awfully a lot more than that in here, but I'm going to try to just go through quickly, and if you have any questions, I have 27-page cheat sheet that I can refer to and probably answer them. Just as a refresher, there are 3 different communities in this school district: Sierra Madre, the City of Pasadena, and unincorporated Altadena. There are a total of 29 schools currently operating, and there's a little over 17,000 students enrolled. One of the programs that's becoming a signature program is that the school district now has bilingual immersion programs beginning in kindergarten in both Mandarin Chinese, Spanish, and French. The first cohorts of this program are now entering high school, so we're very close to being able to evaluate all of these programs. The Mandarin Chinese program is important because that was one of the basis for getting an extra classroom wing built at Sierra Madre Middle School when there was some talk about budget cutbacks on Measure TT. The willingness to take on the middle school Chinese program basically allowed us to build out that entire campus. This is one of the things I want to talk on. Another, I'm going the wrong way. What's happened is that this has become a total choice district, and this is one of the major themes I want to leave you with, that there are a variety of programs that have been custom designed in recent years and are all up and running. One of them is there are these thematically focused magnet schools. Very briefly, Elliott has become an arts middle school with a focus on music, dance, theater arts, and visual arts. Jackson has a STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math, coupled with a Spanish language dual immersion program. Washington Elementary is a STEM magnet, and Washington Middle is a STEAM magnet, which is those other 4 plus arts. So there are a number of interesting programs that have developed, and enrollment has been robust. Another program that's been around for a long time is the International Baccalaureate program. This runs from elementary through high school. This is an international credential. You get a special diploma when you graduate from this program. There are 700 students enrolled in this, and it's proven to be very successful, especially at the college admissions level. Diversity. One of the things that's very interesting is the school district continues to become more diverse. We have a full range of racial and socioeconomic students currently attending. The best example we have right now is Blair High School has students that were born in 30 different countries. And according to recent surveys, there's 43 different foreign languages spoken at home. So that gives you a sense of what students are exposed to when they participate in these schools. This is, next one is following in the same theme. These are career and college academies. This is a program that was initiated actually at the foundation and was brought to the school district. There now are several, let me just give you a few examples. At Marshall, there's a Creative Industries Academy. There's the App Academy at Pasadena High School. Again, this was a foundation initiative. The first class just graduated last year. This is basically computer programming and broader applications. The program's been restructured and is continuing forward. Muir has an arts and entertainment and media program. There's business and entrepreneurship, creative arts, a health careers academy at Blair, and there's a law and public service academy at Pasadena High School, which includes a teen court where Superior Court judges come in and supervise the conduct of sample trials. That's a very popular program. We're basically near the end of the Measure TT improvements. This example is, of course, the Sierra Madre Middle School. The old one was torn down, and this was built from scratch. Very similar types of facilities in terms of quality were recently finished at Washington Middle School. And the shift now has been towards athletic facilities. Many of the campuses have already seen fields and auditoriums and gymnasiums replaced. Pasadena High School is going through a complete renovation of its basketball gymnasium right now. Here's another one. This is actually this is a partnership of a long-standing between the school district and the foundation. Pasadena was one of 3 school districts in the entire state of California that never suspended its music and theater and dance programs during the budget cuts of the last 15 years. In fact, has won some significant awards for the ability to maintain these programs over this time. This is one of the programs, again, Foundation initiated originally as My Masterpiece. Every student from K through 6 participates in a visual arts curriculum, includes classroom discussion, and they visit all of the various museums in the vicinity, Arcadia, Pasadena, San Marino. And after they visit, their parents are given tickets so that they can go back and see it again. So this has opened up a lot of doors, especially at the Huntington and the other places where there are programs for children. One of the things that we initially funded, that just now spread district-wide, are school community gardens. There's 19 of these now. I think every elementary school now has one. Here is another program which is really in the process of really 2 or 3 years old, and it's already had enormous success. The school district is now testing all 5-year-olds for math aptitude, and they're being encouraged to enter into math acceleration programs, and this fits in very nicely with these STEAM and STEM programs, especially at the middle school level. The first group took some AP tests last year. They were 7th graders, I believe, from Sierra Madre Middle and from McKinley Middle, and some of them placed in advanced calculus on the AP exam in the 7th grade. So again, that's a program that shows enormous progress. I mentioned this before. The district is in the middle of renovating all the athletic facilities. We had at the foundation had some discussion about whether we should start raising money to enhance sports teams. This is one of the things that the budget cuts over time. There's very little funding for athletics, especially at the high school level. And it's something that we think we can fix. Another thing that we've been successful, I'm going to back just a second, on the music. The foundation has succeeded with a series of grants, and we have basically restored music education through K-5 for all students. And beginning, I think it's next year, every student will be given a student violin in the 4th grade and taught initially music on the violin. So again, those are new initiatives. We got 2 very significant grants to expand those. Again, a foundation program. Every PUSD school now has a 3D printer. This is sort of focuses a lot of the tech interest. Students love playing with these things. It is an attempt to sort of make technology part of the day-to-day learning process. Robotics. The robotics is now at every middle school. This is a program that was initiated at Sierra Madre Middle School and has now been spread to the other campuses. They have an annual competition. If you ever get a chance, down at PCC, they get all the middle schools together and they compete every year. It's an absolutely fascinating thing. I believe to date, Sierra Madre Middle School has won every one of those competitions. Just a little statistic to keep in mind. It's like the Thoreau's float. Students graduating last year from high school obtained over $10 million in scholarships and grants. So from that standpoint, we're clearly producing highly qualified graduates that are getting in excellent colleges. Teamwork, we have built some very good relationships. So one of the reasons the robotic program and some of these tech programs, we have strong relationships with Parsons, with Caltech and JPL. Caltech continues to step up in surprising ways and help us, but there are other community groups and other corporations that have made major commitments to the foundation and to the school district. One last point here, Pasadena Education Foundation is the oldest educational foundation in California, and is one of the oldest in the country. We were founded in 1970. We raised over $12 million last year through various sources to go directly to support the public schools. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of those people in Sierra Madre. We have an annual appeal at the end of the year, and we have a number of people in Sierra Madre that give generously year after year to support the foundation, and we do very much appreciate that. Finally, I want to leave you with the reason for talking about all these programs and emphasizing the fact that this is a choice school district is the window is just opening for our parents to apply for these various programs. The earliest day you can apply is January 11th, and applications must close on February 2nd. So if anyone is interested in enrolling their child in any of these programs, now is the time to act. The most efficient thing to do is to go to the website, which is pusd.us, and there's a portal there which will take you directly into the choice programs. That's quickly what I wanted to bring to your attention. If there are any questions, I would be happy to address them.
I just want to say thank you for approaching me and talking about bringing this to the City Council. It's information I know we don't regularly get in front of us throughout the year. But I do want to recognize the work that you're doing, and thank you for your leadership there at PEF. I know the reason that we had spoken was during that Principal for a Day event, when I learned about the Math Academy and hearing about 8th graders at our very own middle school that are completing calculus. That just is amazing to me, and they're just really in the pathway for Caltechs and the MIT, so it's exciting work. And I did have an opportunity once to listen to the 3rd graders here at our elementary play the violin, and they're much better than I could ever imagine being at that age. So thank you. But I don't know if our colleagues have any questions for Mr. Doyle.
I just have a comment. Just again, your presentation just reinforces a belief that I've had, is that young families come to Sierra Madre now because of the schools, whereas years ago they came in spite of the schools. And it's Pasadena.
Yeah, we hear that from the realtors a lot now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so again, I want to thank you for what you're doing, because this is really exciting what I'm hearing about.
We've come a long way.
Yeah,
but it's been a long haul too.
And I still think it's a secret that the Pasadena School District is undervalued. There still are a high percentage of people that just send their kids to private schools thinking that the quality of education is not up to snuff, and if they knew more, I think they would feel differently about it.
Can I ask a question of you? Are you still meeting with the school board on an annual basis?
Not with the school board, but I do participate with the Collaborate Pasadena group, and so I do see Kim Kenny at those meetings. But
okay, well, I'd recommend you do that every once in a while, because it will build the relationship.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I know we saw our man of the hour come in. Chief, are you here? All right. Chief Stephen F. Hydorf, we're really excited. Come on up to the front. And what I'd like to do, we do have some recognition for you, and I'll make my way up there, and I'll ask the council members as I'm walking up, if you'd like to say a few words, please do so as I walk up to the microphone.
Sure. I'll go. So, Chief, I've known for a long time, longer than, I've been a council member. When I ran for council the first time, Chief was the first person I met with. He was the first person I reached out to, because he's been here forever. He's worked here forever. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows how everything works. And he's just a very smart, influential, nice guy. So when I sat down with him and I told him my plans, he said, absolutely don't do it. Do not run. And from there, I ran anyway. But no, he's always been just such a great guy. And he was a great chief, and we're going to miss him. And we're not going to miss him because we're going to see him, but we're going to miss him here as the chief. So sad to see you go, but happy now just to be able to spend time with you outside of the city. So
I just want to say that we value your service. You've put in so many long, thankless hours for our city, and it's helped keep us safe. What more can we say? And I want to say you have the coolest wine tasting wine room and the entire wine cellar in the entire city. So
he does.
I just want to say thank you for your service as well, Chief, but just a comment, not only does he know where the bodies are buried, he knows how deep they're buried.
That's right. You know, it's right.
But you're an institution around town, and glad to see that, you know, you'll still be here in Sierra Madre, and, you know, again, thank you for all you've done for the fire department and the city.
The truth is, how deep they are is Public Works.
You know, right.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to say a few words?
I certainly do. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I think the most thing that I'm going to miss the most is seeing that smiling face at the council meetings. It's always nice to look up and see his smiling face, and we'll see him around town, but hopefully he'll come to a few city council meetings and share his smile again. Again, we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
So before I let the chief, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words, but I have to do all this fun stuff. But I personally also want to thank you. I have always heard about the wine cellar, but you know, I hopefully I'll get an invite soon. But I am just extremely thankful for your leadership here, and you've always had just such a positive spirit, and you've always had that smile, and I always got the walk to my car if I needed it. But I know that you will be missed here, but we're glad to keep you as a resident. Okay, so this is, of course, is our certificate of recognition for the city of Sierra Madre for our fire chief, Heidorf. Whereas in 1981, Stephen Heidorf began working as a volunteer in the Sierra Madre Volunteer Fire Department in various roles, including volunteer EMS coordinator and captain. In 2002, Stephen was hired as a city volunteer EMS coordinator and was quickly promoted to fire inspector. In 2006, Stephen was appointed assistant fire chief. In 2008, Stephen became the city's fire chief, a position he held until he retired on December 28, 2017. And whereas Stephen's many accomplishments during his tenure as fire chief include having led the implementation of the paramedic program, launched the Lexipol department policy, incident commander in the Santa Anita fire in 2008, that burned over 580 acres, introduced the city's first ever mud warning system that has been a model to many neighbor cities affected by wildfires, procured over $200,000 in grant funding for fire protection services and emergency medical equipment. And whereas Stephen has always supported education and training, as fire chief, Stephen established a volunteer firefighter academy for over 50 volunteer firefighters and spearheaded a project that created the fire education area for children. This project is intended to educate children on fire safety. And where Stephen was an executive board member and treasurer of the Los Angeles Area Fire Chiefs Association and respected among his peers. Stephen was the city's liaison with the Los Angeles County Fire and Los Angeles County Health Services and worked to establish an agreement with Los Angeles County for automatic aid services. Under Stephen's tenure, he responded to over 9,000 calls for service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of City of Sierra Madre does hereby commend with great appreciation Chief Stephen Heidorf for his dedication and service to the community of Sierra Madre. Presented this 9th day of January 2018 by the City Council of City of Sierra Madre, Mayor Rachel Arizmendi, Mayor Pro Tem Denise Del Mar, Councilmember John Capocha, Jean Goss, and John Harabedian.
That's a lot.
Before I ask other representatives to come up, I am going to ask if the City Council can come up. We'll take a quick picture with the Chief before these other accommodations. And I believe Darla from Senator Portantino's office is here if you want to come up and present.
Congratulations. So on behalf of Senator Anthony Portantino, I will read his greetings. In recognition of your 36 years of dedicated service, on behalf of the California State Senate, I join the City of Sierra Madre and the Sierra Madre Fire Department in thanking you for your 36 years of outstanding service. Your tremendous contributions to the safety and well-being of our community members are greatly appreciated. Best wishes for a relaxing and happy retirement.
Thank you.
Congratulations again.
And I will just make sure that we share. We have two other commendations. One is from Catherine Barger, Supervisor of LA County, 5th District, in recognition of dedicated service to the affairs of the community and for the civic pride demonstrated by numerous contributions for the benefit of all the citizens of LA County. This one. And then also from Assemblymember Holden's office, I don't think we have a representative here, but congratulations on 16 years of service in the Sierra Madre Fire Department. Your commitment to excellence have inspired many and will be remembered for years to come. Wishing you happiness, good health, and continued success in your retirement.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, all that fun stuff.
Uh-huh.
Did you want to share a
Yeah, I
few
was
words?
going to share.
Okay. I'm going to do a quick congratulations. Mwah.
Oh, you're going to need a shopping cart for this.
Yeah.
So there's, he's going to be some big shoes to fill. I hope I can temporarily fill them for right now. But there's two big things that a chief, whether acting or in the full-time position, gets to do. The first thing is being able to pin a new firefighter. And then the second thing is being able to present a retirement badge to somebody that has dedicated so much time and effort to the citizens and the city of Sierra Madre. So, Chief, on behalf of the fire department, I'd like to give you your retirement badge.
Thank you.
And also, just in case you know, the CHP or our local cops are out there, we'll give you the old wallet badge.
That's great.
Congratulations.
Hey, thank you.
Ta-da!
There it is.
I had a couple things. No. Good evening, City Council, City Manager, Darla. When I think back on the changes that the fire department has had in the past 37 years and the firefighters that have come through our department, the ones, there we go, 7 o'clock.
Awkward.
No, it's perfect. I did it for 20 years to you guys. The firefighters that have come through our department, the ones that have retired from the fire department, the firefighters that have gone to their career departments, and even the ones that have gone on to their career departments and then 30 years later retired from those departments. I will certainly miss the firefighters and the paramedics. They are some of the best people I know. The Sierra Madre firefighters have been employed by almost every fire department in Southern California and more. I know we've got some in Georgia, some in Texas, Wyoming, Colorado, so we've kind of, gone everywhere. When I first started, SCBAs, the self-contained breathing apparatus, were not required on calls. They were just suggested. We, as young firemen, always wore them. And then we still had to train to breathe off the nozzle, they called it, which they'd give you the nozzle, you could put it on a fog, you get close to a window, and they said you could breathe off the nozzle. I don't know where the particulars went, but anyway, these guys, after they retired, would die 3 to 5 years later. So we've gone to those, then they go outside and have a cigarette. But for the fire service, change is just real hard for the fire service. When I first started, became an EMT, we never wore gloves. Then AIDS raised its ugly head, and gloves were mandatory. And I remember when gloves first came out, even I was pushed back on the gloves because I didn't want to, in fear that who I was working on, that they had something that I didn't want. I was 180% degrees wrong they're more worried about what I have on my hands. So that changed. That's why change is really hard for the fire department. I was elected to the position of fire chief. I was already the director of fire services, but I had to be elected by the rank and file. Think about you hiring a fire chief, but it's got to get voted on by the guys. Things change. And in 2008, we began the paramedic program. It took us about 8 years to institute that. Again, change is hard. Starting the paid captain's position, not only did we have to find funding, but we had to get buy-in from the volunteers. This change was the hardest because we had to change culture. As I leave the fire service, I know I have left the department a little bit better than when I started, and I am leaving it in very, very capable hands. There will be change, and it will be hard. I would like to thank my family, my wife, Lynette, who has put up with me leaving in the middle of the night of all hours of the day or night. Holidays, we used to go every second, and fourth Friday we'd have a meetings. I mean, my favorite, but my wife is incredibly afraid of earthquakes. So we'd have an earthquake. I've got to get to the station and talk to Verdugo pretty quick. So as she's playing Spider Woman in the door jam, kiss on the cheek, and I'll see you in 2 hours. My daughters, Farrell and Jillian, I'd like to thank them and apologize for all the school functions, the volleyball games that I missed. I'm so very proud of them. As I go into retirement, amongst all the inevitable changes that will occur, well, sometimes changes aren't so hard. I'd like to thank the city staff in all the departments. Without them, none of us would work. I'd like to thank them all except maybe the water department. They keep trying to steal our hydrants. They're fire hydrants, not water hydrants. And I would especially like to thank all of the city managers, the city councils, but most importantly, the residents of Sierra Madre for letting me pursue the best job in the world. Thank you.
Don't be a stranger, please.
Oh, I won't.
Congratulations, though, Chief Heidorf, on your retirement.
Thank you.
And then we lose our crowd.
We'll bring some back.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which are action items, and we have our consent calendar. And Mr. City Manager, I will.
Mayor, we have 3 items on the consent calendar this evening. Item A, adoption of Resolution 18-01 of the City Council of the City of Sierra Madre approving certain demands. Item B, amended and restated transportation services agreement with Transit, Inc. Item C, Treasurer's Report, quarter ending September 30th, 2017.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from council on any of those items?
Yeah, just a quick one on item B. Reducing the per trip fare from $2 to 50 cents. Can you explain?
We'll let Management Analyst Carlson answer that.
Yes, when we were putting this together, we informally polled a number of the communities in our area and found that the 50%, although some of them had risen it to $1 or so, they were pretty much going at 50%. And one of the reasons we're finding is you don't want to outprice some of the new modes of transportation like Uber or Lyft. We want our residents to be able to use it at an affordable cost. It really is not offsetting a whole lot of the program, and we just thought it was a little bit more appropriate to provide these services to our residents at a cheaper price.
What is the impact on revenue?
Like I said, it's nominal. They do reduce the amount of fares collected from primarily the dial-a-ride. And a $12,000 bill we would get a month, they're probably taking a couple $100 off of it for the fares collected. We hope to not lose a whole lot more by increasing the amount of people participating.
I think according to my calculations, it's $5,400 a year.
Yeah.
So a little over 5,000 a year.
And what do you anticipate as far as increase in ridership as a result?
Well, that's always been hard to predict. There's been a number of adjustments done to our program throughout the years. There's been committees established to try to improve it. The routes have been changed a number of times. One of the drivers, we're just kind of looking at the other communities, the other services, and trying to be relatively consistent with, the programs with them.
Are you going to publicize it at all?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Analyst Carlson, when would that effective date be for the new fare?
That could be determined by council. I think, if we get our approval and our contract approved, we would begin, we could roll it out by March 1st, I bet.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for Analyst Carlson? Okay, seeing none, we'll open this up for public comment. Oh, well, actually, I will ask the council if there are any other questions on any other item on the consent calendar.
I just say, seeing that our treasurer is here in the audience, does he have a comment on the treasurer's report? Please.
Good evening, City Treasurer Mario.
And thank you for coming.
The only comment I had is it's taken us about a year, and there's a schedule that I think you have. It's taken us about a year to get some of the funds invested. So right now we have about $8 million that we've laddered into various federal investments, and the interest rates are growing as the ladder grows. We couldn't start and invest it all at once. We had to ladder it. So right now we have about $1.1 million that matures every 6 months. And over the next 6 months and over the next year, we'll have had the opportunity now to invest them all basically in a 4-month ladder, which will, maximize the earnings to about a 1.6%, 1.7%, which is, is okay for city investments.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's great.
Thank you. Any other questions for City Treasurer?
You,
I
Mr.
just
Treasurer.
want to thank you for doing that. I mean, we talked about it for years, and finally, you did something.
yeah, well, thank you.
you.
It took a little longer than I thought it was going to take too, but.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we will open this up for public comment to see if anyone in the audience would like to speak on any item on the consent calendar. Okay, seeing none, I will bring this back to council for discussion and/or motion.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that motion carries unanimously. Next item we have on the agenda is a public hearing item, and it's the first reading of ordinance number 1395, and I believe we have Director Gonzalez coming to the podium.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
We do have a PowerPoint presentation for you this evening. So the City Council will be conducting a public hearing to consider amendments to Title 15, Building and Construction, by adding a new chapter, 15.62, the electric vehicle charging stations. And the intent of the ordinance is to establish an expedited permitting process for the installation of electric vehicle charging stations. Concurrent with this action, the City Council will also consider Resolution 18-03, which establishes a plan check fee based on the recovery of costs for the review of plans for expedited permitting of electric vehicle charging stations. The intent of this ordinance is to comply with Assembly Bill 1236, which is a state mandated bill requiring jurisdictions with a population of less than 200,000 residents to adopt an ordinance to create an expedited, streamlined permitting process. And by definition, the electric vehicle charging station is any level of electric vehicle supply equipment which delivers electricity from an outside source to a plug-in electric vehicle. The objectives of the Assembly Bill is to encourage installation of electric vehicle charging stations, to implement statewide standards for timely and cost-effective installation of those stations, and to require cities to administratively approve an application for the installation of these charging stations, and to adopt a checklist of requirements to qualify permit application for a charging station. The ordinance requirements, it administratively approves, is to administratively approve the application, limit the application review to the city building official, limit requirements of local law to those standards and regulations necessary to ensure the public health and safety. And also, if the building official determines there is an adverse impact upon public health and safety, the city may require the applicant to comply with or apply for a use permit. And the applicant may appeal that decision requiring a use permit or the denial of the use permit to the Planning Commission. The City Council will also determine if an annual registration fee should be required to conduct the plan check. Staff prepared a cost recovery analysis, which is included in your staff report, and that's going to be based on the fully burdened cost to provide city services for the expedited permitting of these charging stations. And the scope of work entails the administrative services intake of the application and the cost to conduct the plan check by our building official. The cost recovery analysis provided in this chart and also included in your staff report provides the fully burdened hourly rate and the amount of time it would take for both the building official as well as administrative staff to prepare not only the plan check but also do intake for the application. And that total comes out to $128. The second row that you see under building inspector, that's not part of this study. This is an existing permit fee, electrical permit fee, and also an inspection fee that is already charged for pulling a permit for an electric vehicle charging station or any other electrical permit up to 3 fixtures. So I just wanted to point out that not only is there the new $128 fee, there's also an existing $221 fee for building inspection and the permit itself. So the alternatives before the City Council this evening is to adopt Ordinance 1395, which amends Title 15 of the Building and Construction Code, establishing Chapter 15.62, Electrical Vehicle Charging Stations, and approve Resolution Number 18-03, establishing a plan check fee. The City Council can also adopt Ordinance 1395 and Resolution 1803 with revisions, and the City Council can also continue the matter and provide direction to staff. The staff recommendation is that the City Council introduce, waive reading in full, and authorize reading by title only of Ordinance Number 1395, amending Title 15 to the Building and Construction Code to add Chapter 15.62, Electric Vehicle Charging Stations, and also to approve Resolution Number 18-03, establishing a plan check fee based on the fully burdened cost to review plans for expedited permitting of electric vehicle charging stations. And that concludes my presentation. Again, the ordinance is included in your packet as Attachment A and the resolution as Attachment B. I also did include the full language of the Assembly Bill.
Okay, thank you, Director Gonzalez. Do we have any questions for him at this time?
Quick question. The definition says electricity from an outside source. Can you tell me what that means?
Essentially, I pulled that from the Assembly Bill. It's basically from an outside source, being from Southern California Edison, and going into a residence or commercial building into an outlet.
So this wouldn't cover a residential solar electrical system?
No.
Okay.
I have a question about the existing electrical permit inspection fee for our building inspector. Remind me, our building inspector is Wildan, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is there a reason, I mean, the fee, and this is not, exactly related to this discussion, but is there a reason why they're getting, the equivalent of $442 an hour to do this inspection? I mean, is there anything, I know that we're supposed to be getting a discount for their services. It just doesn't seem like a discounted rate. It actually seems like a very expensive rate.
Actually, the split is 30% to the city and 70% to Wildan for application fee.
Okay. So we get 30% of this and Wildan gets 70. It just still seems like a lot. And I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can do to lower that inspection fee? Because if with the $128 and the $221, the resident's paying $350 plus the station,
And I don't know if we really could lower. We can always go back and renegotiate and address these fees in other manners. But remember, this fee is not just specific to the electrical vehicle charging station. It's across the board.
Right.
And it's based on a tiered system. So the 221 is actually the lowest electrical permit fee and inspection fee for 1 to 3 fixtures, and anything above 4 and beyond. And I believe there's 3 various tiers that goes up in value, and partly it's based on the valuation of a building permit too.
Got it. Yeah, it sounds like it's probably a different discussion then, but thanks.
Yeah, approximately, and off the top of your head, do you know how many installations we have overseen in town in the last year?
We have not had that many. I did have that conversation with the building inspector, and I believe he said, as of 2016, we've had less than 6.
Wow. Less than 6. So I'm just going to take a guess to say that most of them are getting installed without permits.
Right. I was just about to say, there's no way. We've only had 6, right?
Seen quite a few.
Either that, and they do come in to pull an electrical permit if that's the case, but.
Yeah, but so today, if they come in before this goes into effect, if they come in to pull an electrical permit, what do they pay? Just a $221?
Yeah.
So this is to encourage people, and we're charging more.
That's the.
So we've talked about this. So for the council and the public, the state mandate is to streamline our process. Our process today is pull a permit, the building inspector goes out and inspects it, it's $220, and you're good to go. Tomorrow, when this is implemented, the streamlining will be required to have an application that goes to the building official. The building official is the only person who can review and approve it. After they approve it, then the building inspector goes out and inspects it. So for us, the process today is incredibly streamlined and cheaper. Tomorrow, when the streamlining from the state mandate goes into effect, it'll take longer and be more expensive. It's a state mandate. We don't have an option. We're less than 200,000 people, so we're required to follow this.
Yeah.
Good government in action, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's also, the building official has the ability to make them get a use permit if the building official makes that determination. Per the state bill.
It's true, but they have to make a specific finding, right? Danger to health and public safety. That's a pretty high threshold.
Yeah. And I don't even know if this is related, Director Gonzalez, but is there like a certification of those that can install these stations? Or can it be anybody?
To be
It's a licensed electrician.
Okay. Great. All right, if there are no other questions from the council, I'll open the public hearing. And if anyone in the public would like to make a comment on this public hearing item, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to council.
No comment, other than we just have to do it, so.
Hold your nose.
Yeah.
The only thought was to waive the fee, but then obviously we would be subsidizing that 128, and I think the 128 is not necessarily exorbitant, but I do think that 221 is, but that applies to things, not only the electric vehicle charging stations, but these other electrical outlets. So maybe that's something we bring back at a different time.
quick question, Director Gonzalez. Did I hear you to say that up to 3 receptacles, it's at one rate, and then beyond that, it's higher?
Yes.
So for residential use, there would only, I'm thinking there'd probably only be a need for 1 receptacle.
In this
So are we
case-
charging them for the second and third?
Well, it's that 1 to 3. So it would be up to 1 to 3, it's $221 is the way the fee.
We can't just charge them for 1?
That's essentially looking at it as one receptacle. but-
Right. Okay.
Well, I'll move to approve, unless Councilmember Delmar has any comments. But.
Nothing from me. We just need to do it, I guess.
Okay, was that a motion?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Urbanian?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And that motion carries unanimously. Okay, so moving on to discussion, I think we have Annalise Carlson coming in to the front for Ordinance 1398.
Yes, good evening again, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Item number 3 tonight is Ordinance 1398, and staff is recommending that you introduce Ordinance 1398, reauthorizing fees paid to the city by state video franchises holders for public, educational, and government access purposes. As I stated in the staff report, there is a little ambiguity on the requirement of this. I reached out to some colleagues in other communities, specifically Arcadia, Glendale, and Monrovia, and they're doing it as a precautionary measure. The state franchises are beginning to expire, and there will be no damage done by going ahead with a new ordinance reauthorizing these PEG fees. And we will, by doing that, save about $25,000 a year, which goes primarily to help pay for our broadcasting and our Channel 3 services. I believe our city attorney also said it would be a prudent thing to do. So with that, we are recommending that you introduce Ordinance 1398, reauthorizing fees paid to the city by state video franchise holders for public, educational, and government access purposes, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson. Do you have any questions?
I just have a quick one, Mayor. We get 5% of the gross revenue for the franchise. Is that correct?
Franchise fee.
And plus 2%, up to 2% to pay for the PEG.
PEG, yeah, public, educational, and government.
Yeah. Is the $25,000 revenue that we get, is that in fact 2% of the gross?
Yes,
It is.
Comes into about that, yeah.
Okay, as we see people that are, it's mainly the cable company that pays this, right?
Correct. In fact, right now, it's only the cable company. You may recall that our cable company has transitioned quite a bit lately. They are Charter / Time Warner /
Spectrum.
And they are a little bit difficult to work with at this moment while they're transitioning.
So what I'm wondering, the gross revenue, I know a lot of people are cutting the cable cord, is the revenue stable?
I might want to refer to our Assistant City Manager, Marcy, on that. I did check in with her to get the latest figure of $25,000 for the report, but I don't know the trends. We might ask her about that.
Okay, well, I don't think it's really, as long as we, with the 25,000, we're able to just continue the operation to.
It goes towards it. It's not the full amount. I think there's some general funds that still go towards it for transparency and other endeavors. So.
Okay.
And do we know that amount?
I meant to look that up to give you an exact answer, and I didn't. Off the top of my head, this is about 40% of what we're paying, and I can bring back the exact amount for you if you'd like.
The estimate's helpful, thank you. Any other
Maybe
questions?
we should sell the branding rights to this channel and advertise on it and see if we can lower that cost a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I like your thinking. Okay, there are no other questions at this time. I will open this up for public comment. And again, this is on the PEG, Public Educational and Government Access Support Fee. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion and/or a motion.
I'm just wondering, you know, what the overall trend is for the long-term future. You know, is cable going to lose a big market share, and therefore we reach fewer and fewer of our citizens via this channel?
If council would like us to take 2 weeks to try and determine if this is our best and most appropriate path forward or use of funds, determine if revenues for the cable company are steady, and verify this is in fact 2%, we're happy to do that.
I don't know that it's urgent that we, you know, I mean.
Right.
But we're locked in for 10 years? Is it a 10-year lock-in?
Should be a 10-year renewal.
I believe it is. That's part of the ambiguity, and that's why a lot of people have taken a prudent step at this time, because they're seeing it, the 10-year expire at different times throughout the state.
This is probably a technical question. I think from my vantage point, people are moving to the web for their television. And a lot of the stuff you see on the web now is designed to be public information. So how could we maybe get the folks in Monrovia who are broadcasting to take that signal they're putting on the internet and make that friendly for someone who's got a smart TV to be able to use using their Wi-Fi system going out to the internet?
We currently broadcast on YouTube, so if you have a smart TV,
Okay.
you could watch it.
So I don't know if the public's aware of that, but that's an alternative to this, right?
Yeah, and in fact, the city of Monrovia also uses community media of the Foothill. And so we have been streaming for quite a while. And we try to put that out with our publicity tools, but we could probably, you know, put it in a few more communications in the near future for you.
Because I feel like the cable is like a no-brainer. You have the cable TV on, your channel serving, oh, there's channel 3. But if it's not there, then how do you get people to think about it as being something they go to YouTube for on their smart TV?
Sure. And you could, and it's another point is these rebroadcasts are on a schedule. A lot of people would like to see it on demand, and they are starting to figure out. Right at our front page, you can see rebroadcasts of city council meetings that take you to that YouTube, so you can start at the beginning. You can move through the different items if you have interest too right now.
Right.
I think to that point, though, we could look at YouTube as well as maybe Facebook Live or some other emerging media.
I mean, the more hip, I guess, consumers out there are all over this, right? The millennials in particular. But we have a lot of folks who probably are not hip to the idea that they can actually watch government TV using YouTube on the internet.
Right, but all we're deciding tonight is assessing the fee, right? So we're not locked in necessarily to do anything with our video provider. I mean, this is
collecting the
this
money.
is just collecting the money.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
As I guess as Manager Analyst Carlson said, there's some ambiguity
Right, whether we even
around
have to do
this.
this,
So,
yeah.
we think it's a prudent move to do, but I think there are a lot of valid questions that we can come back with answers for.
Was there a did you move or?
No, but I will if you want me to. I'm so moved.
Or do we do open?
Have we done public comment?
I think we did. Yeah.
We closed
no
it,
one came.
I'm a little out of sync here.
So we have a motion on the table.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and that motion carries. Okay. And do we need, are we instructing staff to come back with more information then?
I'm not really, it's something in the course of when you get time, I'm sure you have a lot more important things, but just something for the long term, I think we should take a look at how many of our citizens we're reaching, and is there other things we can do, like you suggest, to make it easier for them to follow the proceedings of the council.
Okay.
Okay, so our next item for discussion after Fire Director Goth didn't get to make the party, but I'm sure he will right after this.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor, City Council members, Mr. City Manager. come before you again to ask for you to look at the adoption and modification, or the adoption of Ordinance 1397U, which would be for the amendment of the current ordinance for the red flags, yellow flags for the MUDs. This would, when we presented it to you in December of last year, on December 12th, this stated that staff was recommending that we modify it to include red flag fire weather, which at the time we had a lot of, but as shown today, we don't have a lot of. But it still feels relevant, so we came back to present it for staff to present it back to City Council for approval. This is an urgency ordinance, so it will take effect should Council approve it tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions for Director Goff?
I have. I don't remember from December 12th. It seems so long ago, but it's last year. Did we do anything to notify the Canyon residents that this was coming up? Did we reach out? I don't remember. I thought we discussed that.
No, correct. Staff presented, or staff discussed that once we had approval, we would do an education. Because of the urgency, or we felt, or staff felt that the need for this amendment to occur, we felt, unfortunately, get the amendment in, get it passed, and then we'll go through education. Although it will be enforceable, obviously staff will need to go through an education up in the Canyon area and do some, sorry. Now that I have that out, maybe I can stop mumbling. We already have the fire department's currently working on getting a presentation and prevention program together through our current fire prevention officer, and we do plan on presenting education to the Canyon and also to the other affected areas, which would be Mount Wilson Trail.
What about written notification? Are we expecting to get that out to all the residents there?
Staff will work on that. We can have the possibility to add that to the water bills and other flyers, or we could do a door-to-door education through pamphlets or passing out of those types of flyers.
Yeah, I'd like to see at minimum it going out through the water bill. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we don't want this to be a surprise the first time you have to declare a red flag.
No, and I think with the weather, as you can see how it's changing and how it's moving, I think we will have some time based off of the future forecasts. We're not anticipating the red flag issues that we had in late December, mid-December. So we should have, staff should have plenty of time to do a education presentation to these folks that reside up in the Canyon area.
So for Mayor and Council, this seems a little bit disjointed. It's initially we intended to have the conversation, bring it back for first reading tonight, bring it back for first reading in 2 weeks. Instead, based on the conditions that we had, we decided just to go straight to urgency. So instead of having the 2 months to put our education and outreach program together, it kind of compressed our calendar. But what we agreed and think is wise to do is the outreach door to door, and we also will, when the first red flag goes out, instead of just starting to tow cars like we do today, we try and find the owner, we knock on doors. So we'll take our time to roll it out correctly, but this is a little opposite from the order we had intended it to go.
Okay, any other questions at this time before I open this up for public comment? Okay, thank you very much. And if you'd like to comment on this item, please come to the podium and state your name.
Hi, Barbara Lee Klein. Apple before the cart before the horse, or whatever. I'm not sure how this is being amended as to what we've already had in the past, but I would like to know what accommodations will be made for the business that's located in the Lower Canyon, Mary's Market. I'm sure on red flag days they might still be open, and how will this affect then for people trying to get in and have a bite to eat, or do what they need to do. And it also seems to be, it's important, the canyon's been there for years, and the way the canyon's built, we all are aware that there's lack of parking, garages, driveways, but it seems to also then just single out those people that are lacking that. So that just doesn't quite seem right. So there seems to be some more work needs to be done there, how not to just single these certain people out. Born and raised here all my life and only had a few days where it's been really necessary to clear the canyon, and people do clear when there's fires or mudslides. But it just seems like this might take some more work or have an educational output and have the public come in and give their insight before this is made into an ordinance. Thanks.
You want me to address that, Mayor? So the idea on the red flag warning is we're not evacuating the canyon. We're just keeping cars off public roadways or areas that could obstruct public safety vehicles from entering or exiting the canyon. So if you're in a parking lot, that's going to be okay as long as you're not obstructing a roadway.
And I think it was helpful during our last discussion to be able to visually see some of those, the blockage for emergency vehicles to get up. And again, knowing that that was at a fire time and now we're looking at mudslides, it is kind of hard to look at that. But understanding the necessity of having access. So.
Just kind of a follow-up question to that. Just a second. Mr. City Manager. I think the question also addressed the issue of Mary's Market, and if they have clientele there that can't park there now because residents up higher up are down now parking there where they wouldn't be otherwise. Or if we thought about a way to mitigate that on behalf of the business.
Yeah, the process that we'll use for fire days for red flags is the same we use for mudslides. So it's the same process that's been in effect and we've used for the past 10 years. So when we're talking about access on roadways, again, we're not, if you have a car in the canyon, we put up a red flag, that doesn't mean your car can't be in the canyon. It just means that it can't be on public streets, public right-of-ways. So I'd like to let Director Goff answer the area around Mary's Market, but if it's in accommodation in a public safety emergency is not going to be our first order of business.
As staff discussed when we presented on the 12th, staff plan to use this only when necessary. We discussed also that prior to the presentation on the 12th, there would have only been 4 days between January and the presentation on the 12th that there would have been posted red flag days. And then after that, obviously, we had almost 10 days in a row. So that would be an impact. When you look at it, it's already posted for Mary's Market where the parking is. So yes, this would be an impact to them. And we would need to, as part of our outreach, communicate with those owners and probably discuss with them on how we can assist them in mitigating and still get foot traffic up there. But again, if we have a red flag and we have issues, getting fire apparatus up there or being able to evacuate those that do live in the canyon, especially those in the upper canyon, and those on Woodland, and just getting them out would probably take a little bit of priority over that. But I believe we can meet with them and have an open dialogue on how to mitigate their impact.
Okay, thank you. And again, I think it's helpful to understand that we've had this process in place for the last 10 years for mudslide, and now it's including the fire weather days. So, okay.
D. Alcorn on Grandview. I was certain as part of the outreach, might be able to help as part of the process to do the door-to-day and things like that. They do some outreach like that, so that might be, they're part of you guys, so they might be able to help you folks with that.
Thank you. There's some steep streets out there for doing some door-to-door. Good workout. Okay, do we have any other comments on this item for discussion for ordinance 13.7U? 9.7U. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion.
So, I feel like negligent not to have done this before. So thank you very much, Director Goff, and to the city staff, city manager, for bringing this forward. And I think that this is an urgency issue. And so for me, I'm not all that concerned that we haven't done the outreach yet. To me, I think getting this in place right away is absolutely necessary. A couple, I guess, unsolicited advice as to how to get this out. I would do the mail, some sort of mailer in the mail, but I would also probably hold a town hall, like put a date on there where you can have people in the canyon come to City Hall or have it in the Sierra Madre room or whatever, where you and Director Goff and members of the council, one or two, can be there and just be like, here's what it is. Here's what happens on those days. Here's what you do and what you don't do. How you've explained it to us, right? It seems pretty straightforward. And I think that would go a long way. Maybe 25% of the people come, but then they can tell their neighbors. And also I would use the police marquee. I'm not sure what it's called, where it's an electric signboard. Yeah. I would use that maybe to advertise the town hall, and just because to me, I think that there's going to be a lot of confusion about, what do we do on a red flag day? I'm new to the canyon. Does that mean I have to, all the questions that you're hearing now, So again, feel free to disregard that completely. I'm not the communications marketing expert, so there might be easier ways to do that. But I feel like, certain generations, you're going to get them through the media, you're going to get them through Facebook and whatnot, but then there's going to be another subset of folks that I think it's going to have to be a conversation where they can ask questions. So
I think we'd be happy to do that. They're good suggestions.
Yeah.
If I can add to that, maybe you should have it at the Nature's Friends.
Yeah, that's a
Up
good
in the
point. Up there, up there.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Actually, of course, I'm very happy and thrilled and supportive of putting this ordinance in. We really needed it. I was really surprised, as I said before, that we didn't have it. I would also recommend, as a communication tool, working with Mary's Market and perhaps having the meeting there, since it does affect so many of those canyon people. And you can discuss the parking at Mary's Market at the same time.
I actually thought about that too, but then I thought about parking to
Parking,
get
right.
to Mary's Market. Okay. Any other comments for discussion? Okay. Given what we're seeing, just what we saw on TV today, I don't think there's any question that we need to take every action, precautionary action, to ensure that we have access to areas like the canyon. I think this past weekend I drove down to Brookside to take a look at something, and I was just amazed at how narrow it is. And if you're not up there frequently, it's really alarming to see how difficult it is to get up and down. So, I thank you again for bringing this as an urgency item or urgency ordinance. Again, given where we are today with what's going on with our weather, I think it's important that we do that. So. I can make a motion on this. I move to consider ordinance 1397 to authorize this ordinance to be put in place as an urgency ordinance.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, and that motion carries unanimously. Great, thank you, Director. Now you can go to the party. Okay, our last item on the agenda is a discussion, also resignation of elected city clerk Carrillo and options for providing continuation of city clerk services. And it looks like we have our city attorney that will be presenting this.
Mayor, I think I'll start on this one, and I'll let the city attorney fact check me,
Great.
which is always fun to let the attorney do that live. So, with the resignation of the city clerk effective on January 5th of this year, council has 60 days to either fill the vacancy through appointment or schedule an election. During the interim period, staff is making one recommendation tonight, and then if council accepts that, then we'll determine if we would like to appoint for the duration of a term or host a special election. So staff is recommending tonight that we appoint the Assistant City Clerk to handle all functions of the City Clerk position, including elections official, until a new City Clerk is appointed or elected. We would like council to determine if they'd like to appoint a City Clerk now, or if they would like to hold a special election to fill the current vacancy. If an appointment is desired, staff can advertise for the position like we do for our commissions. If an election is desired, then council needs to determine if they'd like a special election or to have it coincide with the general municipal election. Special election can be no earlier than June 5th, 2018. The expected cost of a special election is about $55,000. Or the general municipal election will take place in April 2020. And the appointed position would remain as an interim city clerk until the election.
Okay. Any fact checking there, Madam City Attorney?
Well, that was almost perfect. Sorry. Your only options really are to either do a special election, in which case if someone running for, and that would be a special election in June or November. We really can't wait until 2020 because then that's the end of the expired term. In 2020, the 4-year term becomes available for a new candidate. So right now, what you're looking for is to either appoint a resident of Sierra Madre to serve out the unexpired term of the city clerk position, which will expire in April 2020, or alternatively, pay to hold a special election to have someone run for the remainder of that existing term. So if you did that and someone ran for the position, they would only serve until April 2020.
So I do have 2 questions on that. First is, what year are we consolidating our election?
My recollection is we're
22.
22. Yeah, that's what I recall.
It would be November 22, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second question is, I heard 2 options. One is to either appoint or go to a special election, but I'm also understanding we still should appoint an election officer. Despite which option we go.
Bringing that up. That's an additional thing that you really need to think about tonight, because we are too close to the April 2018 general municipal election in order to add a position. You can only do that not less than 114 days. We're too close to it. So that means that you are going to have to decide who should be the elections official for the April 2018 election. And you can direct staff to do it, the city manager, or you could direct the assistant city clerk to be the elections official for this particular election.
Thank you for the clarification on that. Okay, do you have any other questions regarding what was just presented?
The only question I have is for the Madam City Attorney, which would be, is there anything under the law, wherever this is codified, that we have an elected city clerk that would prevent us from appointing an interim city clerk? You know, I mean, I guess I don't know where's the authority that says that, you know, it's an elected city clerk and therefore us appointing someone technically could be contrary to that.
Well, there is none, and in fact, the authority for the appointment, the council's choice, and it is your discretion whether to appoint someone, and it has to be a resident of Sierra Madre who's actually also registered to vote, or to hold a special election. Those are your statutory options. So that question's already been answered by law.
And isn't it the same for a city council member? If one of us resigned, the remainder of the council would have the opportunity to appoint or
go to special election.
That's correct, and that's a good point. Yes. Okay. Basically, business must go forward, and so that is why you have this option. It's for expeditious conduct of city business and city meetings, that you have the option to appoint And again, that person would only serve the unexpired term of the elected city clerk, or you could go out to special election. I think staff has estimated that the cost of a special election would be about $55,000.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a question.
Please.
City Attorney, can you explain if we go to appoint a city clerk, what would the duties of that, the responsibilities be for that person? And is it different than if we held a special election? Are the duties different either by appointment or election?
Whether it's appointment, which again, it's just to appoint someone to serve out, to basically to take over the unexpired term. So the duties are exactly the same. And the duties of a city clerk, whether that's an elected city clerk or an appointed city clerk, by statute include keeping an accurate record of city proceedings. We call that minutes. It can be verbatim minutes or something much less, but as long as there's a record kept. The city clerk also acts as the accounting officer in a city if you have no finance director. Here you do have. The city clerk also keeps a record of all the city ordinances and resolutions that the council passes. So there's a book of ordinances that the city clerk keeps. The city clerk is also custodian of the city seal and finally acts as an ex officio assessor, which is also not going to apply here because you have an assessor's office. So those are the legislative functions of a city clerk. Now, in addition to that, the council has the authority, both under the government code and under your own municipal code, to assign additional duties to the city clerk. You have never done that. Other than an occasional resolution. I think Ms. Carrillo, there was a resolution that assigned some additional duties for which she received extra pay. You have 60 days, but no longer than that, to make this decision. I don't think staff's expecting you to make the decision tonight, although you can. But whatever decision you make, whether to appoint or to go out for a special election, it will be helpful to the person either running for that office or accepting that appointment to know what the duties would be. And so that's why that's also covered in your staff report, something to think about. Will you be looking for someone to just perform the legislatively dictated duties? They're small. Or do you want to expand those duties? And now most cities that have more expanded duties perform those through a so-called professional city clerk, someone who's a city employee, because it takes a lot of time, far more time, than an elected official would be spending.
So, Mr. City Manager, can I ask
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have any other questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thanks. So, Mr. City Manager, in the meantime, since the effective date of the resignation is today?
This past Friday.
Past Friday. Do we have all of those duties covered at this point with Assistant City Clerk?
Currently, yes, we do, Mayor.
Okay. And then, again, just for clarification, Madam City Attorney, given the time frame, we still need to ensure that we have an election official appointed or an official motion to make an election official in place.
At a minimum, that is an action that you should consider taking this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions at this time? Okay, let's go ahead and open this up for public comment. Please state your name if you come up to the podium. And
Hi, Barbara Lee Klein. Didn't know this was going to be on the agenda, so my usual speaking off the cuff, here I go. Elected official is that, elected official. Special election, $55,000. I'd say we need to spend $55,000 to elect the official. But, as witnessed here a while ago, the council wanted to save $7,500. And basically, we got the resignation from the city clerk. Before that, I didn't hear anything from the council members about the quality of her work. Nothing was said. Just the amount of money that was stipend. It was pretty sad what I witnessed here. So, as an elected official, that doesn't say too much for the voters. So you might appoint someone, and hopefully that person does have background of a city clerk or the basic needs that any other city has when they list what the city clerks do. So we're only talking about 4 years, and yes, this upcoming election is an important election. Hopefully, whatever you guys do, you do remember to let the local paper know, our local little tiny adjudicated paper, of any legal notices so that the city doesn't find itself in more hot water with the state. But I think what was witnessed here a while ago was pretty sad. I think it could have really been dealt with differently. So I really don't see how you can run in another election to have another city clerk for 4 years. Especially since nothing really was said about the quality of work. It really just came down to the money. It's one of the few travesties I have witnessed here at a city council in all the years I have been coming, and it's been well over 20 years that I have been attending meetings.
Okay, thank you. And just one thing I want to clarify is that we have 2 years left on this term. So if we appoint and if we have a special election, it would just be for the 2 years, correct? Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry. Did you give the head now? So
At Elkhorn,
that's correct,
live
yes.
on Grandview. Reading the staff report, there are several things that kind of popped out at me, but I think it wouldn't be fiscally wise for us to have a special election. I think if council could appoint a city clerk that would serve the term, as our city attorney said, until the election on 2020. I think the citizens would be okay with that. But the appointee needs to come from the community rather than a city employee, because that gives the appearance of taking away the independence of an elected official. So I understand that there's going to be an advertisement for applications, and I think that's a really, really good idea. But I think before you appoint somebody, you need to define what the duties are and what the expectations are, and what is the purpose of having a city clerk. It really has not been clear after all of these years. We've had a city clerk that's done a marvelous job and done her duties, but has never been, apparently, it's never been defined in any of our ordinances, and I believe that's really what you should do. And as far as the election, appointment of the election, I understand that Laura Aguilar, the assistant city clerk, is already hard working at that job, and so I think that's really appropriate, and she should continue to do that until after the election, and then maybe an interim city clerk can be appointed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to discussion to the council.
Mayor, can I?
Please, Mayor Pro Tem Delmar.
Start? So, I totally agree with what Ms. Alcorn had to say. I think we have two issues presented to us. One is we need to really define what the elected city clerk responsibilities and duties are, and what and have that written up in an ordinance so that if we appoint or if we have a special election, that city clerk is well aware of what those responsibilities and duties are. I also think that Ms. Aguilar has already started doing the election administrative tasks that go along with what the city clerk would have been doing. So, of course, continue that. And if we need to appoint her the election officer for April, I see no problem in doing that. I do have a problem with holding a special election on two counts. One, it's a lot of money. And two, we had a hard time getting one person to run for city clerk a couple of years ago. And I don't want to run the risk of holding a special election and not have anybody run, and then miss that 60 days. So I would like to know how we go about that. If we if we wait until, June, and we don't get anybody for a special election, then do we appoint someone, or do we go ahead and appoint someone now? And is it possible to hold a special election down the road? Those are the two things that I'm not clear on, if that made sense.
It sounds like Madam City Attorney will answer those questions. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. No, it's a decision that you have to make within 60 days. So within 60 days, you need to either decide that you're going to appoint someone, or you have to call the special election. And so we can't call special election, wait and see whether we get a candidate or not, and then decide to appoint. You would have been without a city clerk for that entire period of time. So you don't have to make the decision tonight, but you do need to choose one or the other within 60 days from the date of Ms. Carrillo's resignation.
Does that answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem?
It does. It clarifies in my mind what we probably need to do. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that makes sense to me is to do what's suggested, advertise, similar to how we solicit for people to serve on our commissions, and see if we can get a few people, at least one qualified person to submit. And I think we should appoint a city clerk. And I would appoint it my preference would be to appoint it for the remainder of the term and not incur the expense for a special election. So I think that to me is the only thing that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would also be in favor of our assistant city clerk, assuming the duties of the election official until we appoint, and I just think it would be fiscally very unwise to hold a special election for a good point that the Mayor Pro Tem brought up, which was we barely got one candidate last time. So I think that this isn't exactly an office that people are running to the city clerk's office to sign up for. So
in the last 35 years, there's been one city clerk election where two people ran. The rest of the time it was unopposed.
That's right. So I agree.
I concur with what you two just said. Nothing to add.
So firstly, I do want to thank Assistant City Clerk. I know you have been really taking a lead on these issues and ensuring that we are following protocol and meeting the deadlines. So I would be in support of appointing you as the election official. And I do want to thank, I know, if I can use your name, Ms. Alcorn, has come forward to offer to volunteer to help on the coordination on the volunteer side. From a lot of what we've heard from public is a concern as to what the election itself will look like and ensuring that it really is stemmed and moved and directed by the community. And I appreciate you stepping forward on that. I know that there have been a group of volunteers throughout the years that have continually participated and put their time in for that. And I look forward to ensuring that continues, because there has been concern as to whether it would be directed on the city staff side. And if we can continue looking at your leadership to ensure that we have community volunteers, I think that would be extremely helpful as we're going through this transition. So thank you for that. With respect to appointing and special election, to me it's not a question. It's looking at an appointment, especially because it's 2 years. I do want to say I have had at least one person that I've spoken to that's been interested in the position, and also 2 others that have expressed interest through others. So interestingly enough, even though it may not be an election that we're garnering interest, at least in this appointment consideration, we have those that are interested. So looking at the appointment process, going through the application piece of it, I think is going to be key also, and ensuring we have proper notification, that whether it's in addition to the newspaper, but other means of advertising for it, I think is going to be an important piece. The question I have for Madam City Attorney, though, is that is there a time period, even though we are within our 60 days, should we be setting a time frame as to when to appoint and gathering applications and interviewing all of those pieces to ensuring that we're appointing the correct person?
If there's consensus this evening to give direction to staff to start the process of applications for appointment, we should try to get it done within 60 days if at all possible.
Okay. And so in order for us to do that, also hearing some of the comments today and also comments from the council, is to ensure that we properly have the responsibilities laid out. I know there will be a question again about compensation, but being sure that we are clear about what that compensation will be as we are advertising for the special appointment.
That would definitely be staff's recommendation, because there was one stipend set by statute for the minimum duties, the statutory duties, and I believe that was $250 a meeting?
That's correct. It's the stipend's paid when the city clerk attends 1 meeting per month.
Right.
But it's $250 per month.
Correct.
Per month. I stand corrected. So there's that, and that's for the minimal statutory duties that I described in the beginning of this topic. But if you want to expand that list to some of the other things that, for example, Ms. Schollenberger did, and things that Ms. Carrillo was also doing, then there was a different stipend that the council had set by resolution, but it was very specific to doing the extra duties. And so before you advertise for someone to be appointed, they would probably want to understand what it would be expected of them. How, is the duties the small list, or is it an expanded list, and the time that it would take, et cetera?
So, Mayor, unless staff hears differently tonight, if we do have direction, what we would advertise for is for the position to keep an accurate record of the proceedings of the legislative body, keep and record all city ordinances with a clerk's certificate annexed to each, and act as a custodian of the city seal. And we would anticipate the $250 per month for attending 1 meeting. And it would be for the unexpired term, and then an election would take place in 2020. And the assistant city clerk, until the new city clerk is named, would be named the acting city clerk and elections official.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do we need 2 separate motions?
I think it's just direction, isn't it?
It's direction tonight, but it would be good to actually have an action taken to appoint the assistant city clerk officially as your elections official, because our previous resolutions identified the office of city clerk as the elections official, which is our custom.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have direction on the appointment piece, and you don't need action on that item. Okay, then I will move to appoint the Assistant City Clerk as the election official for the April 10, 2018 election.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and that motion carries unanimously. And then we have direction from, or for the appointment, and we'll hear back from Mr. City Manager at the next meeting.
Yes, Mayor, we'll follow the normal advertising procedure and bring it forward when we have the minimum number of applications.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay.
Great.
So it looks like that is the last item for discussion. Do we have any new agenda items for future meetings?
Yeah, I'd like to suggest something, if you guys are in agreement. I've had a few questions about what we're doing with the Kirsting Court upgrade, and I haven't heard anything for an awful long time. And also our arts and public places. You know, we gave the
All tied in too.
Community Services Commission direction a long time ago
Yep.
on that, and I imagine those two are tied together now. So I'm wondering if we can maybe have the chairperson of the Community Services Commission, along with staff, come and give us a presentation on what their plans are, and I'd like to know what roadblocks they are, what things they need to get this moving. I think
Good
it's
idea.
a,
That's good.
yeah,
I
it's
forgot
a-
about that, to be
yeah.
honest with you.
I remember people asking about that.
Yeah.
So good, thank you.
We're happy to bring that back.
Okay, appreciate it.
Any other items for agendas in future meetings? Okay, seeing none, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you,
Aye.
everyone. Thanks,
Aye,
Mayor
all.
Pro Tem. Enjoy.
See you later, bye.
Bye.
Good job.